information shared on Girl Pray On It is for educational and informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Although I am a licensed mental health counselor, I'm not your therapist. Unless, of course, you're one of my clients. In that case, I am your therapist, and I'll see you in our next session. Listening to this podcast does not create a therapeutic relationship between us. If you are experiencing emotional distress or a mental health crisis, please seek support from a licensed mental health provider in your area or contact a crisis line. Always pray on it, and also reach out when you need help.
But not to us. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
How are you doing?
I'm good today. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. That's great.
How are you feeling?
I'm doing great.
Amazing.
It's a lot cooler here in New York City.
It's beautiful.
So that's great. I have not sweat like even a fourth as much as I normally do. Mm-hmm. So that's great.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that for you. Love that for me.
Yeah.
This is what I like to call perfect hijabi weather.
Yeah. Actually, perfect hijabi weather is when it's super overcasty and it's also windy. That to me is perfect hijabi.
Windy?
Yeah, I love.
Oh, no. Hell no. No, I do not want that wind coming and trying to expose me.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes the wind can be a little bit Islamophobic. That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
But I personally love the cold. Like, my perfect weather is Seattle all the time. Rainy, overcasty, windy, cold.
Who are you, Twilight? Who are you, Bella Swan?
I might be.
Are you a vampire?
I might be. Yeah, I might be. But yeah, I do not like hot weather. Like it's not my jam.
Okay, Twilight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm vibing with this weather. I'm loving it. It's overcast today. It's about 70. There's like not too much of a breeze, but just enough that you're cooling off.
Yeah.
It's mwah.
Mwah. Okay.
Mwah.
Perfect. I love that.
Yes.
Well, welcome back to another episode of Girl Pray On It.
I'm Rebecca.
I'm Ayesha. And welcome back. So, am I your first black friend?
Ooh, no.
No?
No.
Are you sure?
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah.
I think you're my first white friend. No, that's not true. I had a lot of white friends.
Yeah. Women.
Well, because I went to...
This private school?
Yeah, private school. I went to private school, so, like, that was, like, the norm for me. Yeah.
I think I've mentioned it before. I grew up in a really, really small town, and when I was growing up, it was very homogeneous. It's now a lot more diverse, but back when I was growing up, it was probably, like, 95% white.
Really?
And there was, really like only a handful of people of color in my grade.
Nice. I love that. That's great. I love that for us. Yeah. That's great. How much work do you think you've done to unlearn your racism?
I think a lot. But I think like the journey started for me a little bit later in life, and I wish it had happened sooner. But as I said, growing up in a small town, and growing up in a very white town, nobody was talking about it. Nobody was talking about racism, anti-racism. And so my journey really started in college, where you and I met.
Yes.
And we went to a very large school in Philadelphia that is very diverse.
Temple University, TU. Yeah.
And that's when my education really started.
Yeah.
And I think when I started to learn about racism and how to be anti-racist, it made sense to me. And I think because I was already of that mindset or framework, and I think although I did grow up very sheltered and I did grow up in a very predominantly white community, my parents raised me to be open-minded. My parents raised me to be liberal thinking in terms of these elements. And although I didn't have like too much exposure, the exposure that I did have was really helpful in helping me have an anti-racist framework. And so when I started to learn about it and be educated about it, it felt, this makes sense. This is what I always knew to be true, but no one had ever taught it to me. And so I think I was already primed to be open-minded to this and to be willing to look at myself and unpack my biases and prejudices. And then my education really continued into grad school and learning about how marginalization impacts mental health and learning about how the system in America and like systemic issues contribute to mental health issues. So I think my education is like always forever ongoing. All of ours is. So it doesn't end at any point. It just grows and flourishes and continues. But yeah, I think it started in college and it's been ongoing ever since.
Nice. We love to hear that, especially as a therapist, right?
Yes.
Tell me about how anti-racism comes into play in your therapy practice.
Yeah. Well, I think as a therapist, it's not enough to be not racist. You have to actively be anti-racist and practice anti-racism because race is in every facet of the work as a therapist. When I'm sitting across from somebody who is of a different race, like already there's unspoken dynamics that are at play between us. There may be a power differential. There may be unspoken biases and expectations or assumptions that we have of one another. So it's going to be a part of therapy no matter what. And then obviously when I am working with someone who is from a marginalized background, we have to have conversations about that in the work that we do together, which a lot of the time means for me asking my clients, how do you feel about the facts that I am white? What does it feel like for you to talk to me? What does it feel like for me to be your therapist? And for a lot of people, because I practice from an anti-racist and social justice lens, they are really comfortable. And for other people, they may not be as comfortable, which is totally fine because some people want to see someone of their same racial background. And that's whatever works for you. But I think actively practicing anti-racism is essential as a therapist because it means having to acknowledge the systemic issues and barriers that contribute to mental health issues. So you cannot be a practicing therapist without recognizing that there are social injustices that contribute to mental illness or just lack of mental health.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. And I want to shift gears. I have two questions, one about the Muslim community and then one about your experience now as a hijabi, being a white person, wearing the hijab. What has been your experience around race and social interactions?
Yeah. I can very clearly see that I'm afforded privilege being a white person wearing hijab compared to somebody who is from another racial background. I have very clearly seen that the lighter the skin tone, the less Islamophobia or xenophobia or hatred that you get in society. There is a privilege, even as somebody who experiences the marginalization of being Muslim. There is privilege that you're afforded just for the sake of having lighter skin. So I absolutely recognize how privileged I am and how the way that I look influences the way people treat me. For sure. I think that in talking with my friends from different racial backgrounds, I can see that I experience less Islamophobia or less anti-Muslim hatred than they do.
So do you believe that you're the way that you look right now is racialized? Have you had those types of what has felt either racist or Islamophobic interactions?
I've experienced Islamophobia for sure. There's no doubt about that. And as you had mentioned before I was Muslim, I was just a white girl with white girl hair, going about my life, and really never experienced anything like that. I was Jewish, and so I think I had very limited experiences of anti-Semitism, but really not much. And so becoming Muslim, wearing the hijab was a huge, huge, huge cultural shift for me because all of a sudden people were looking at me with a sense of suspicion. And there was a lot more. It felt like the stares that I got, the looks that I got were much different after putting on hijab than they were before. I think previously, before I was Muslim, if I got like a funny look from someone, my mind was thinking to myself, like, maybe they're a little creepy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And now when someone gives me a look, I'm kind of like, are they being Islamophobic? Are like even just the thought process has changed a lot. And now there's a lot more fear for me when I encounter someone who is looking at me for a fraction too long. Whereas before I might think, this is a creep, this is a weirdo, or this is someone who's wants to approach me and talk to me, something like that. Versus now there's like a fear that I have of, this person is thinking negatively toward me. This person, maybe they are anti-Muslim. So I think my thought process has changed a lot since becoming Muslim and now experiencing marginalization from wearing the hijab. And I say again, of course, I'm immensely privileged and I recognize that. But obviously wearing hijab makes you marginalized in American society. So I think my awareness has changed a lot, and now there is sometimes an anxiety or a fear I get when someone looks at me a little bit too long. And so it's really changed my whole perspective on everything.
So the other question I was going to ask is just within the Muslim community, while we all know white people cannot experience racism, right, on a systemic level, have you felt bigoted or someone was prejudiced against you for being white within the Muslim community?
Okay. No.
Yeah.
I think we've spoke about it in a previous episode. I think a lot of people make assumptions about me being a revert and being white. And I think there's a lot of the way people automatically assume that I don't know anything, or people make assumptions that I'm Arab or that I'm Turkish and they speak to me in those languages. And I wouldn't consider that prejudiced. I wouldn't consider that bias. I would think of that as people are making assumptions about me, even though they know nothing about me, and they're making an assumption strictly by the way that I look. But I don't think I would interpret that as being bigoted in any sort of way. Anything, I feel as though within the Muslim communities, there is still a lot of colorism, and that there is still a sort of
hierarchy.
And because I am white, I do feel as though there's a way in which people actually revere me or the way that I look.
Or fetishize you.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a big one in college.
Yeah. Like the white revert. Ooh, gotta collect them like a Pokemon. Yeah,
you were there.
Yeah.
You were there.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of people like taking interest in me, and there being like nothing of substance within that. People just liking the way that I looked. And then being really excited that I was a revert and kind of giving me attention because of that. And so I feel as though being white in the Muslim community, you are afforded a level of privilege. And from my observation and my interaction with Muslims within the last 13 years, I've seen that racism actually is a very large prevalent issue within our communities, even though it's quite clear in Islam that racism is wrong. It is condemned. The Prophet ﷺ condemned racism and several times spoke about how there is no superiority, there is no hierarchy when it comes to race. And yet I still see that this is a really prevalent issue and that there's colorism even in communities of color.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about your experience being a Black Muslim in the community.
Yeah, there's like several, within the Muslim community, I have a lot of different things going against me. I'm really tall, I'm almost 6 foot, right? I'm also plus size in recent years, right? I didn't always used to be this size. And then also being Black, that like mix, and then being a woman as well, like that mix of identities has made my time within the Muslim community fraught, and I've been able to find good supports and friends within the Muslim community, but there were times where it was really, really hard. My first instance of racism was actually in Sunday school, Quran school. And it actually made me like not want to go to Quran school at all and not want to learn, because one, I was one of very few kids who didn't speak Arabic at home.
Okay.
So there was that added thing of, oh, you're not a real Muslim because you don't speak Arabic. And then kids would make fun of me for not having correct pronunciation, but they also just didn't want to be around me. I don't know what they were told at home or what they saw on the media that told them. They all had a perception of Black people are thugs, they're hood, they're ghetto, and that's like what they held, right, within the Muslim community. And one of my distinct memories was I was talking about how I did not want to go back to Quran school. And so my mom was like, I'm going to sit down with the head of the Quran school, Sunday school, and talk to her. And so she's talking to the Quran teacher. And while I'm sitting there, I'm like sitting in front of these stairs on a bench. And there are kids up there, like at the top of the stairs, throwing pieces of paper at me, like, because they just didn't like me. And they're throwing these like tiny little pieces of paper and just making fun of me. And I was like, I don't ever want to come back here. And that's been the context of my experience. Like, there are many core memories that I have of that type of thing, that othering happening like repeatedly, whether it's to the masjid and it's a predominantly Arab or even Desi like masjid, and women don't want to pray next to you, or they like move away, right? And they also want to correct me like a lot in the way that I practice. They want to teach me how to pray. I was like, no offense, I was born into the religion, I know how to pray, right? And they automatically assume that you're a revert. There's no problem being a revert, right? But there's an assumption that all Black Muslims are reverts and they don't know as much as like other people. And so that's been shaped my experience. And then even till I can think very vividly of not feeling like I fit in, even in the university context, right? Like, it was very, very cliquey, like at Temple University at that time when we were there, right? And I did not feel as if I was welcomed by anybody but the Black people, Black Muslims that I was there. So I've had Black Muslim friends, and that was great. And I always wanted to have Black Muslim friends. And that's part of the reason why I went to a school in Philly, because it's like full of Black Muslims. Philly is just known for having a big Black Muslim American culture. And that's what drew me in. And you were my only friend who was not Black, right? At that time. Of course, there were like a couple of other people who were like other races who I hung out with, right? But the large majority of people, it felt like they were very cliquish, and it was really hard to find inroads into those into those groups. And I felt like that's been the case throughout any Muslim community that I've been to. And so I talked about this before, but my parents, they found community at Black American masjids, and that's where they felt most at home, right? And so that's been also my context. Like, my mom was really good about, for us trying to go to all these different masjids, right? We would go to the Somali masjid, or the Sudanese masjid, or the Yemeni masjid, or the Desi masjid, but you can always feel the difference, like being Black and being visibly Black in those spaces versus when we would go to a predominantly Black masjid, right? And so that, I feel, is it's a shared experience amongst a lot of Black Muslims, and particularly even Black American Muslims. Like, there's a lot of like anti-Black Americanness within the Muslim community, even amongst fellow people of the diaspora, right? Like, you can go to a Sudanese masjid and they do not see you as being one of them. Same thing with like a Somali masjid, right? They do not, like, when it comes to this hierarchy that we named before, like, Black American is at like the lowest of the low. No one wants to like essentially mess with us. No one wants to be in community with us.
Even lower than African.
Because there's this idea of African Muslims at least have like culture, and they have like their own like enclave. But then there's this added, like, the stereotypes that are shared in media are essentially bought into by the Muslim community. And so they see a lot of Black Americans as being hood, as being ghetto. All the men like converted in prison, even though that was the case for my dad. And so that doesn't help the stereotype much, but that's the idea. Oh, you're not a real Muslim. You're just like, that's just something that happened. You're just a Muslim in name only, right? Mm-hmm. So that's my experience in the Muslim community. But I think that I will say that I have seen a lot more mixed marriages in recent years, which shows me that we're working on it as a community, but there is still some deep racism and, like you said, colorism within the community. There are still people who will not allow their son or daughter to marry a Black American or a Black person at all, or even someone of a different race, Daisies who don't want their son or daughter to marry an Arab or an Arab to marry a Daisy, right? Mm-hmm, and so there's all this intra-racism, which is so ridiculous, right? And even like tribalism. And we're in America. You need to be thankful that your son or daughter is a believing woman or man and is wanting to marry another believing woman or man. That should be your most basic standard. Mm-hmm, exactly. But it's still a huge issue for us. And it's really disappointing.
Yes. Well, I just want to say, I'm so sorry that this has been your experience. It makes me so mad, and you deserve so much better. And it's really infuriating. It felt as though when we were at school, we had to make our own community. Mm-hmm. And I loved that community that we formed. Yeah, it's because, as you had said, it was really cliquey. And a lot of that clique was based on a cultural framework that you and I did not share. Mm-hmm. And it felt as though if you were not Arab, you couldn't fit into this clique.
Yeah, or even Desi.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think, as you're saying, that things seem to be changing slowly. Yeah. Slowly things are changing. I think it starts with making communities feel more safe and communities where there is just an openness and a welcome. Mm-hmm. And I think the spaces where I have felt the most accepted have been diverse spaces where there's people from all different backgrounds. Mm-hmm. But I also have felt so welcomed by the community that you shared with me. Mm-hmm. Even walking into Malcolm X's masjid here in the Black community space, I felt like I was welcomed with open arms and just embraced as just being a Muslim versus some other communities that I've gone to where it was actually much less welcoming and a lot more intimidating.
And if I can add, I think a lot of that, that welcoming aspect comes from the experience of being othered, right? Yeah. And I feel like Black masjids are a lot more welcoming of people who are of different races, even of different faiths, coming in, because Black Muslims historically have been othered by their own community for not being Christian, right? And then not being accepted into African spaces because they're Black American. Yeah. And so there's definitely a heavy emphasis on inclusion within these Black Muslim, particularly Black American Muslim spaces that I feel are just very welcoming to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So tell me, what is it like for you to have a white friend, and what is your feeling about having relationships with people who are not Black?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't have any friends who are not anti-racist. Yeah. I need accomplices. I don't need just allies, right? Yeah. I need people who I know. For me, when I'm not there or stand in for me, will protect me at all costs, right? If you're a little iffy on being able to call out racism, I can't be around you, because even your own parents' racism, you know what I mean? And so for me, what that means is that I'm very selective about who I hang out with, and I want to know that I'm in a safe space, right? And because of how many instances of racism I have faced as a Black American Muslim, I believe in allowing... Everybody's on probation when I first meet them, and they have to work their way out of probation and demonstrate that they are down for the cause, right? And that they are anti-racist, that they are willing to call out racism wherever they see it at any moment, even if it's a loved one. So that's kind of where I'm at. But it's definitely hard because, like we mentioned before, there's a lot of tribalism, colorism, racism within the community. And people would be like, I love my Black brothers and sisters, but when it comes down to like actually sticking up for us, that's not the case. I think during the Black Lives Matter like protest, that was the most like horrifying experience to hear from Muslims who were like having discussions online about whether or not it was halal to go to Black Lives Matter protests.
Right.
And like we mentioned this before, right? About whether or not it's okay to be there because of the various possible fitnas that exist at those places. And it's just very interesting to me that I think the Black community has always supported every other community in any other struggle, right? Even right now, like the Black community and the Palestinian community are like this.
Yes.
Because we know the struggle, we know the oppression, and our oppression is linked very directly, right? Like cops in New York are trained by IDF soldiers. They go to Israel to be trained, and then they use those tactics on Black and brown communities back here in the US. So we're very aware about how our oppression is linked, but I feel like the Muslim community does not recognize that. I mean, maybe we recognize it more now with Palestine, but back in 2015, 2016, it was not recognized as an interlinked struggle. And of course, there's always Muslim communities who are going to come out and support the Black Lives Matter protests, but it still felt like it was like an iffy subject. And I didn't feel like it was like Muslims should be standing up and like fighting alongside the Black community. It was very much, oh, should we not? And a lot of people don't understand is that Muslims in America would not exist if it were not for the Black Muslim communities and the space that we opened up here in America, like through the civil rights movement, through Malcolm X, through the Nation of Islam. Like the Muslim communities would not exist if it were not for like the Black community, and specifically the Black American community, laying the foundation for other Muslim communities to be accepted. And it's kind of a lot of Muslim communities do not recognize the foundation that was set by Black American Muslims that affords them the ability to come here and to set up like their own communities and their own masjids and to live peacefully and to live in all of these different spaces. And so it's just sad that the majority of the Muslim community has kind of, until recently, forgotten about the Black Muslim community. And that's why we've had to create our own spaces.
Yeah. I think one thing that you mentioned that really stood out to me was it was interesting to see the response after George Floyd and how our community responded. And unfortunately, I feel in the very beginning, there was a huge failure from the Muslim community in taking action and responding. So I do remember that after the George Floyd incident happened and BLM started to mobilize and we started to engage in protesting, a lot of Muslim organizations took a really long time to respond or to say something and put out a press release. And that was a little shocking. And I know that there were people within the Muslim community who were saying, why should we care about this? Like, why do we need to protest? And it was like, are you serious? Are there not Black Muslims? Like, a huge portion of the Muslim community are Black. And so it was like baffling that had to be said. And as you had mentioned before, just as a large portion of the Muslim community is Palestinian and we stand up for Palestinian rights, a large portion of this community is Black and we have to stand up for, Black people.
And there's also more Black Muslims in the world than there are Arab Muslims, which a lot of people forget. Yeah.
So true. I mean, it was quite upsetting and shocking.
Yeah.
And it was like, it should have just been without hesitation, without question. We're going out there and we're protesting and we're boycotting and we're standing up for our Black brothers and sisters. But it took a minute there for the Muslim community to really get their act together. Right. And even so, as you had mentioned, there's still, unfortunately, discourse about whether or not we should engage in these kinds of things.
Right. Yeah. I'm coming back to 2025 when Trump won. A lot of like the Black community, there's a lot of Black discourse around, we're going to remove our support from Palestine because we don't feel like they supported us in this election in trying to get Kamala Harris elected. And I feel like that's coming from a frustration point of feeling disappointed and feeling like Black people are not ever centered. Our needs are never centered. However, I don't believe that that was like an appropriate conversation for Black people to be having about how we're going to remove our support from Palestine. But there were people who were having these online discussions about like, oh, time to go back to Starbucks and McDonald's. And it was like, no, like, whoa, like we need to like chill, right? But I understood where the frustration was coming from of like, we help everyone and no one ever helps us, right? I could not agree on trying to get Kamala Harris elected without a firm stance for a ceasefire and for a Palestinian state. I was like, genocide is my red line, but there were a lot of Black Americans who felt hurt by the election results and felt like their needs were discarded because people wanted to teach Democrats a lesson, even though it was a lesson that they needed to learn. I firmly believe that. But yeah, there's a lot of like frustration felt within the Black community right now, feeling like we show up for everyone and no one shows up for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Islam is inherently a religion that so emphasizes social justice. This is a religion of justice. And so it's interesting the cognitive dissonance that certain Muslims have when it comes to social justice. I think if we are talking about social justice and you claim to care about social justice, then you should know that Black people are the most marginalized in society, and we have to be vocal about it. And we have to examine what kind of racism systemically is happening in the masjids, in the Muslim communities. Like literally the Prophet ﷺ, his last sermon was no person is superior over another person. I mean, these are the final words that he left us with. Was a sentiment of anti-racism. And yet it's so prevalent within this community. And I'm curious for people out there who are maybe just starting their education and who are kind of just starting to understand about racism and maybe who want to become more social justice oriented, what would your advice be to them?
So one, I think Muslims' favorite anti-racist like lesson is Bilal. That's their favorite thing. That's the thing that they point to. They're like,
I learned my son Bilal. Racist.
Like they love that. They're like, the first person who ever did the adhan was a Black person, and it's okay. That can't be it, right? That's not all of it, right? I said this before, and I'll say it again. Start being in community with Black people. Start inviting them to your homes, to your functions. Befriend a Black person, right? Befriend people who are outside of your racial or ethnic group, right? Because the more people that you are in community with, the more you learn about their perspectives and how they view the world and what their experiences are, right? And it also challenges your worldview. It challenges your perspectives, right? It helps you to understand that your experiences are not like a blanket experience. It's not what everybody else is experiencing, right? And that's the first way to start, right? Don't have a Black friend just to say you have a Black friend. Have a Black friend because you want to expand your circle and you want to ensure that you're showing up for all parts of the community, of the Muslim community, right? And I assure you, people want more friends. I think like in our 30s, we've discovered that we don't have as many friends as we thought we would, but be in community with people who are not in your normal circle, right? Encourage your parents to learn more about the history of Black American Muslims in the United States, because I think a lot of the old heads don't actually understand. That's what we call old people in the Black community. A lot of the old heads, both in the ethnic non-Black Muslim communities, don't actually have an understanding of the history of Muslims in the country. And like, they don't know that the first Muslims to show up on Turtle Island here in America were Black slaves, right? And I think that needs to be the context for which we are teaching our parents. And it's especially important to teach our parents because they're the ones who are often guiding a lot of the policies within our masjids. They're guiding like who sits on the board, what things are we doing, what like social justice protocols are we having, where are we showing up to what like different protests like Black Lives Matter. And it's incredibly important that the younger generation is educating their parents on the history of Blackness within our country, because that is a gap that I've noticed. Like a lot of, if you were to talk to a non-Black Muslim ethnic person, they would not know about the Nation of Islam. They just see them as Kafirs. They're like, oh, they are not real Muslims. But they don't actually know that without having the Nation of Islam, there would be no Muslims within America, right? There would be that infrastructure that was created. There would be nothing. Like Muslims would have had a much harder time adjusting and coming into America, right? So like that type of knowledge is needed. And unfortunately, that's not something that is taught to our older generation, but I think the younger generation can take up that mantle, right? Widening your community, befriending people who are not in your racial circle, right? Teaching the older generation. And then when we are starting to have kids, right? Trying to dispel the stereotypes and dispel the cultural traditions of getting our kids married to people within the same tribe, culture, or race, right? Let's not let that be the main thing that we're focused on, but rather, are we marrying our daughters and our sons to good Muslims, right? Because there are tons and tons of great Muslims who are not given a chance in the marriage process, in the marital process, and we are really losing out on potentially great matches. It's already so hard to get married in America as Muslims right now, but we could be doing a much better job. And then the third thing is we need to be having more anti-racist like education within the masjids, right? We have really great programming around Iman, around faith, right? Around the Quran, the Hadith. Like we have really great education around that. But just like we have that great like spiritual education, we also need anti-racist education, formal anti-racist education built within masjids. Like, I don't think there are like a handful of masjids and Islamic programs that have DEI centered like roles or even like goals. So those things are not even thought of as being a part of when we build an Islamic community center. Do we have a DEI person who is going to ensure that we have diversity, equity, and inclusion?
And
I
never even thought about that.
Like those roles don't exist within the Muslim communities right now.
Right.
Yeah. And that's my bread and butter. That's what I do like in schools. I am a DEI leader, right? But we should have those in Islamic communities, Islamic community centers and masjids, right? When we're building these new masjids, as a part of our strategic initiatives or our strategic plan for what we want to see in 10 years, there should be at least 2 to 3 goals that are DEI based, right? And you should have someone on the board who is strictly there to ensure that we are building a coalition of diverse, equitable, and inclusive community and goals, right? But we don't have that right now. trying to build that into our masjids is going to be really important. But I don't see it at all.
Wow, that's really important. I think I had never thought about the fact that there aren't DEI programs within the masjid, and it's so true. I wanted to share a story that happened a few years ago. A lot of, as you had mentioned, our masjids, the leadership are people in elder generations, and because of that and because of older ways of thinking, a lot of the younger generation, I think, is deterred from coming to the masjid. And yet it is really on us and on subsequent generations to speak out when there are injustices happening in the masjid if our elders are not educated about it. And a few years ago, there was a masjid that, in the wake of the BLM protests and the George Floyd incident, wanted to invite police officers to come to the masjid and have a conversation with the Muslims, the Muslim community, as a way of healing or understanding one another. And yes.
Okay, this is why we need DEI leaders in masjids to be like, no, that might not be the greatest idea.
It was completely tone deaf.
Yeah.
They even created like a flyer for it, I think, at one point.
Yeah.
And the younger generation was outraged.
Yeah.
And they flooded the masjid social media with comments talking about how insensitive and tone deaf this was, how unacceptable it was, how they would be boycotting the masjid and they would not ever go back to that masjid. And the leadership of the masjid saw that and was kind of like, oh, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
And set up a meeting with the people who were outraged.
Yeah.
And they had a conversation about it. And they ended up canceling the event.
Yeah.
And so this, I think, is a perfect example about how it's incredibly upsetting and unfortunate that in leadership of masjid, there's not more DEI programs or there's not more younger voices on the boards of these masjids.
Yeah.
However, the younger generations, I think, do need to step up a little bit when it comes to this because we are just more educated about it. And obviously with younger generations, there tends to be more, as we mentioned, diversity.
Yeah.
And so us as the younger generation, sometimes we do need to step up and we do need to challenge our elders and we do need to say, no, this is wrong.
Yeah.
And it can make a huge difference. And I was really, really proud.
That's amazing. Our boards are often made up of the older generation, and usually it's a monoracial board, right? It's very rare that there's any type of diversity. Like, I often, like, in my experience as a Muslim, have heard, well, and I said this earlier, right? There are the Yemeni masjids, there's the AC masjids, there's the African masjids, and they're all named by like their racial group. And there's very few masjids that I have been to that they are actually diverse in the people who come and the people who sit on the board.
Yeah. I think really the best community that I've ever seen is, and I think you would agree, NYU. NYU community.
Yeah, which is now ICC NYC, I think. Yeah.
So I think that is the best example of an inclusive masjid where all people are welcome.
Yeah.
It's the most diverse masjid I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The programming is wonderful. And you see people not just of all different like ethnic backgrounds, different like religiosity backgrounds, like different levels of religiosity, and yet everyone feels welcome.
Right. Yeah.
Regardless of how religious or non-religious they are.
Yeah.
That is like the most progressive community I've personally seen.
Yeah.
I think it's a wonderful community and we need more communities like that. As you had mentioned, like it's so common for masjids to be like segregated, like they don't say that they're segregated, but they are.
Yeah.
And I think what's happening there is, I do want to point out that a lot of immigrant communities feel the most comfortable and safe being among their people, especially when you have come to this country and you don't know English
Anybody or anything,
and you don't know anyone.
Yeah.
it does feel really important to have a community of people who understand you. And so I really do get that. I really do get how difficult it is to come to this country and not know the language or the culture and to feel most at home with people who are from your background.
Right.
So this is not like a knock on that. I think I totally get that.
Right.
And I also understand if someone is coming from a framework of it's just easier to marry someone who knows my culture and my background.
Yeah.
So I want to acknowledge all those things and yet still like those things can exist while also creating a welcoming, diverse community and expanding the community beyond just one ethnic group so that everyone feels welcome and you can still have your people, but that it doesn't feel like other people are not welcome.
Exactly. 100%.
But I want to say that if you are a person who is white and you are trying to practice anti-racism, that means having to educate the other white people in your life. It is not the job of Black people to educate white people on how to be allies and how to be anti-racism. We have to do the work ourselves. So I think part of what I try to do is educate the people in my life who are unfamiliar with this kind of work. And to be quite honest, I also feel like I need to have friendships with people who are also understanding of this as well. And I will say, like, my friends who don't understand this and don't understand this work and don't practice anti-racism, like, I see that our friendships have fizzled because what are your goals in life? What are your values in life as a person? And I value Islam, I value justice, I value anti-racism, social justice kind of work. And those are the kind of people that I want to be surrounded by.
Yeah, 100%. Same. I was on TikTok the other night and there was a white revert talking about, well, you guys need to come into the country legally. And I was like, whoop, skirt. You have not done enough work to unpack your white supremacy and your racism. Please don't bring that into the community because that is going to create a whole can of worms that we can't even begin to unpack right now.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anything else to add for today?
I think anything else that is coming to mind should be for the next episode.
Yeah, the next episode.
So we did good.
Okay.
We'll end it here.
Perfect.
I hope you all enjoyed this episode.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Love to hear from our listeners about their thoughts. My hope is that this could be a really eye-opening conversation for the Muslim community, seeing literally a white person and a Black person have conversations about race. I really hope that this can be educational for the Muslim community.
Right. Inshallah. All right. We will be back with a listener letter next. We're back with our listener letter portion of the podcast. If you have an issue, a question, a query, a problem, something that you want our opinions on, you can send an email to girlprayonitpod@gmail.com and we might just read it on the podcast. All right, great.
Good.
All right, so we have our listener letter for today. As a Black Muslim woman, born and raised, one of the hardest things to overcome and accept is Allah's permitting of racism against me. The first time I was exposed to racism is when I met Muslims overseas at an Islamic school growing up, and I just couldn't accept or understand why. I'm not just talking about racism by Muslims, but also non-Muslims. I feel these are the times where my faith is the lowest, and I don't know how to overcome it. I get up and pray for Allah's protection, but when a racist thing happens, I find myself questioning the whole thing. If I asked for protection, why did Allah let me walk right into that situation? It's happened in school, at work, when I traveled. I'm also dark-skinned. It's one of those things I've battled since 3rd grade. As I grew into an adult, it's become harder and harder because it's one of those things I fear I can't have children because I don't want it to touch them. I found plenty of other Muslims say Bilal was Black as a way to try and get me to not feel this way, but it feels very dismissive. Also, I grew up being asked if I was a born Muslim. So how do you cope? Any hadiths or ayahs also help. Yes, that resonates a lot with me because I also understand. Maybe this is bad. Maybe I should make dua to Allah to protect me against racism, but I don't. It's not even something I've even thought about asking protection from because I think as a Black American Muslim living in the West, it's one of those tests that we just have to face on a day-to-day basis with being visibly Black and visibly Muslim. And so I think it is one of those tests that Allah has left us with, and also it's a test for other Muslims who are non-Black to treat their brother the way they want to be treated, right? And I definitely empathize with you about, like, why does Allah allow this to happen? I think it's an opportunity for you to view these things as a test, and also as an opportunity to gain more rewards and blessings for enduring this hardship. And I would also say that this kind of unfortunately just comes with the territory of being Black, right? We're going to face racism within the Muslim community and outside of the Muslim community. And unfortunately, it's just pure ignorance. If you come across someone who is being racist towards you and you have a relationship with them, you can talk to them and tell them how that makes you feel. Obviously, it's not your job to educate every racist person or every person you have an interaction with that is racist, but know that it's not on you, it's not your responsibility, and ultimately it's a test from Allah for us to be in control with how we react, right? And so I encourage you to continue to make dua, dhikr, practice having sabr in these occasions, and know that it's not even about you, right? Oftentimes it's about the stereotypes or even the media that has talked about Blackness, right? Or Black people, and people are just like emulating what they've seen, or they're just speaking out of ignorance, right? That might not be helpful, but I guess I'm just so jaded from it that I'm just like, it is what it is. The more you can focus on your solo iman and your relationship with Allah, and not allowing other people, specifically within the Muslim communities, their perception of you and their racism impact your relationship with Allah, right? Like, that's what I recommend, like trying to hold firm to this religion and connecting with the Quran. And there's the ayah that says, with every hardship comes ease. And so know that ease is coming, even if it's not in this life, it's in the next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that this story is eye-opening to the Muslim community and whoever's listening. I think that, like, more people need to share their stories and their experiences, and more people in the Muslim community need to listen to what our Black brothers and sisters are telling us, because my hope is that hearing a story like this could be eye-opening to our community, and to show that there are people within our community who are hurting, who our behavior is directly impacting them, the racism, the colorism is directly impacting our own brothers and sisters, and we will be accountable for our behaviors toward our brothers and sisters, and obviously just our behavior in general, but we will be held accountable for our racism. So I hope that stories like this can be eye-opening to our community members.
Yeah.
But I think it's just so upsetting that this is like an everyday average experience that you have shared, that you've had, that this listener has shared. And I think, as you had pointed out, it's still really important to remember that racism is not from Islam. It's from Muslims who are imperfect people. Islam is a perfect religion, but human beings are not perfect people, and they're not perfect at practicing Islam. And so even though there is a strong condemnation of racism within Islam, still Muslims continue to hold racist beliefs. And so I know I had said it before, but I think it's important to continue to remind yourself that the very last words that the Prophet ﷺ had shared with his community was about the fact that there is no superiority in Islam or among Muslims. There's no superiority between a white and a Black. The only superiority comes from good deeds, and the person who does the most good deeds is the person who is superior. And so I just encourage you to do the best possible, all the good deeds that you can possibly do, and know that's where your character lies within you, and other people's character lies within them.
Yeah.
So you keep pushing yourself to be the best person you can possibly be, to strive for all those good deeds, and your character will shine through. And people who are racist toward you, their character will shine through. Yeah. And they will be accountable for the way that they have mistreated you. So I think that's one thing that comes to mind, and just to remember that the companions struggled with racism too. There's stories within the Sunnah, there's like stories about the time of the Prophet ﷺ when there would be companions who would, in moments of anger, make racist comments. And the Prophet ﷺ would have to remind them that they were acting as though this is Jahiliyyah days. He would literally remind them that this is not Islam, this is not how we behave in Islam. So unfortunately, racism is obviously something that has existed throughout the entirety of like our history and our time, and so it's not that it will probably always exist. But we have to continue to hold each other accountable. Our like brothers and sisters in our community, we have to continue to hold ourselves accountable. We have to continue to hold each other accountable and remind one another that that racism is in conflict with Islam. Yeah. And we're accountable for how we treat one another. Yeah. So I think that's something that comes to mind. Yeah.
I love that she brought up the Bilal story always being brought up as, oh, don't fret, remember Bilal? And that's it. Yeah. Like within the Muslim community, our anti-racism cannot stop with the story of Bilal. Yeah. That can't just be it, right? No. So I'm glad that she brought that up. And then I also don't know if it was mentioned like within, I don't know if it was mentioned within the letter, but I want to encourage you, if you're able and if there is a community around, to go seek out a Black masjid. Yeah. Even if it's an African, if it's any type of Black masjid, will inshallah be much more welcoming and hopefully make you feel accepted and welcomed. And so I want you to find community amongst people who share your race or ethnic background, and inshallah that will help you to feel less alone, right? And just remember that this is a test, and I firmly believe that people who are experiencing, this is what I'd love to believe, because Allah is like all merciful, right? People who are experiencing racism on a day-to-day basis and have all of these experiences, these are opportunities for us to receive Allah's mercy and blessings upon us. And who knows, this might be the reason why we're saved from the hellfire. Yeah. Is because we experienced that level of racism in this world. Yeah. Who knows? Yeah,
totally. And I think we can talk more about this in a upcoming episode. I think a lot of people may be confused how in immigrant communities within the Muslim community, how they could be racist when they're people of color. Yeah. And I think I want to touch upon really quick, like how colonization has impacted our communities. Yep. So how British imperialism has obviously impacted like our South Asian communities. Yep. And how that has really led to a lot of colorism, and colonization has colonized our minds at times. And so we see that even within the Muslim community, where the majority of Muslims are people of color, that there is still the racism that exists. Just because you experience marginalization doesn't mean that you can't be racist. So I think we really need to consider how our histories and how colonization has contributed to racism within Muslim communities.
Yeah. 100%. Anything else to respond?
No.
All right. I think that's it for this segment, and we will be right back for Ayesha Rants.
Yeah.
All right. So now is a point in the podcast where I, Ayesha, look at the camera and I rant about something that is bothering me that day, that week, that month, whatever. And today it's about sunscreens, okay? Yes, Black people need to be wearing sunscreen as well. Everybody should be wearing sunscreen, at least SPF 50 or 45, right? And yes, Black people should also be wearing sunscreens. And just so you guys know, Black people as like a community are more likely to die from skin cancer than any other race, because oftentimes our skin cancer is caught too late. Yeah. And Black people have been told that your skin is a natural,
Right.
like, SPF, so you don't need to wear SPF, and that's a lie, okay? So please wear sunscreen, but that's not what this rant is about. The rant is about, if you want me to wear sunscreen and reapply every 2 hours, why is my sunscreen bottle so small? And why is it so expensive? So most sunscreens are about 1 to 2 fluid ounces. This big. It's smaller than my phone. It's smaller than my hand, right? Look at this. It's ridiculous. So you want me to reapply every 2 hours, and you give me this size for $25.
That's insane.
Yes.
But that looks like fancy sunscreen. That's not like the kind that you can get like from like Costco or something.
Yeah, but the bulk one, that one breaks people out.
Yeah.
You can't wear that like on your face. You can wear it on your body, but you can't really, like the copper tone and the Neutrogena, like all that stuff breaks you out. Not to mention the white cast. Let's think about the white cast, right? Why do sunscreens still have a white cast? That's racist. It's racist.
It's white face.
It is. No, what's worse, it's purple face. Because when I put it on, my skin turns purple or blue. It's really bad.
Oh my god.
So I just don't understand. If you want us to wear sunscreen and reapply every 2 hours, why is it this small? It should be 3 times as big. Because this will only last me, at most, 3 weeks to a month.
Yeah.
Right? And I'll be honest, I'm not reapplying every two hours. That's just not happening. But I do have sunscreen sticks that I'll reapply, and I keep them in my purse. But it just does not make sense for a face sunscreen to be this small and you have to reapply every 2 hours. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it costs $30.
I know.
This is crazy.
We're lucky that as hijabis, there's so little of our body that's actually showing. So really, we only need to worry about like our face, our hands, and that's it. Yeah. But yeah, like before I was Muslim and I was like, my skin was out. Yeah, I need a lot of sunscreen. Okay, that's a big part of your budget. Has to be devoted to the sunscreen.
Exactly. And I have to use sunscreen made for the face, otherwise I will break out. Right. And also, you know what? America, you low down dirty bitch. Okay? Let me tell you why. Because they banned Korean and Japanese sunscreens from being sold in the US.
Oh my god.
And they had the best UV filters, right? They have the most updated UV filters. And it didn't have that greasy, like, feeling that it normally has. Right? You know what I'm talking about? Have you ever had Japanese sunscreen?
No.
Okay. Well, I'm about to change your life.
But what's the point? I can't buy it.
Well, you can still get it on the lowdown.
Oh, I'm wrong. So why did they ban the sunscreen?
Yeah, so they banned Korean and Japanese sunscreens from being sold because the FDA only has like 3 or 4 UV filters that are approved to be in sunscreens. And they're the like greasy ones, right? So we're going to do a little test here now that we're on. I'm a sunscreen fiend. I've been trying to use up all my sunscreens, but previously I would have anywhere from 6 to 10 sunscreens.
Wow.
Like in my house. Yeah. But all right. So this is the American one, right? This is the normal one with the normal UV filters. Okay, give me your hand. Right. Just gonna put a little bit on. So you feel this and how it's like thick. Takes a while to rub in.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. So that's the normal one.
I don't think that the camera could like pick up what it looks like.
No, it's thick and greasy. It's about the feeling, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Now this is a Japanese sunscreen, right? Skin Aqua. This is one of my favorites. Yeah. Now feel this texture. Look how much further it goes to. Do you feel that? Do you feel the difference?
So it's definitely much lighter weight.
Exactly.
But like.
Well, wait till it dries down. Wait till it dries down. Okay. Okay, well, what were you going to say, though?
Oh, it smells nice.
It doesn't have any smell. It doesn't have any of that like normal sunscreen smell, right? Like, smell your other hand.
I kind of like the sunscreen smell, though. It reminds me of summer.
I don't like that.
It reminds me of childhood.
Okay. But you feel like the difference, like it's much less like, well, it hasn't dried down all the way. But you see how this is like way shinier than this? Like, this is much more matte and like natural.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if you could tell. We're on our influencer type shit right now. But the camera's not really picking it up.
The camera's not picking up. This is the American.
Wait.
This is the American sunscreen.
Okay. Yeah.
And this is the Japanese sunscreen.
Okay, but how does it feel though?
I would have to agree with you. I think this feels a lot lighter.
Yeah.
Yeah. This feels like I'm wearing nothing.
Exactly.
This feels like I'm wearing something.
Thank you.
Right? I wouldn't think I would agree with you. No.
No, see, like, once it actually, like, dries down, you really cannot feel anything. But, like, here you can feel like there's something on your hand, like there's, like, a lotion, greasy type of feeling, right?
Yeah.
Right? And so, America, like I said before, you low down dirty bitch, and we're gonna probably, like, bleep these out. But how dare you take away my Japanese and my Korean sunscreens? UV filters.
They're racist.
Oh, racist. That's racist right there, okay? And I don't appreciate. Also, look how much more this. Okay, how many? This is 100 grams, right? Versus this. Okay, well, we're not even in grams here. We're in milliliters. But like, just look. You can tell it's a lot more. I don't know if it says, but this is a lot more. Like, a lot more. And this was like $15 for this bottle.
Okay.
And this was $25, but I got it on sale for $19.
Okay.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, I think I'm joining your team now.
Yeah.
I'm there with you. I will be honest, like, I'm not spending a lot of money on sunscreen.
Mm-hmm.
When I buy the face sunscreen, I bought sunscreen for $5 the other day, and, like, it's not the best. It definitely gives a white cast.
Yeah.
And it's pretty thick, but I'm kind of like, I don't care. I just need to have the coverage.
Yeah, but you're lucky because you're white, so you don't have to worry about the white cast. The white is already on the face.
You are very correct about that. Yes.
Yeah. And with most Korean and Japanese sunscreens, you do not have to worry about a white cast because they're all chemical filters, right? Mm-hmm. And they don't give off that white cast, and then they don't also give off that greasy feeling. This is like a gel, right? Oh, yeah, it says Super Moisture UV Gel. And it's just way better. I don't know. And that's my rant for today. It's giving racism. Racism.
I'm with you.
All right. Well, I think that's it.
I think that's it. What a beautiful episode we did today.
Yes.
Long. Yeah, very long. And I hope that it's of benefit to the people who listen.
Inshallah.
And I think we have a lot more to talk about related to this topic.
100%.
So join us again for a sort of related topic. We're going to be talking about white supremacy.
Yeah.
And hopefully that will be of benefit as well, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah. All right. See you guys later on the flippity flop.
Is it flippity and everything every time now?
Yep, because you said flippity flip, and it's not flippity flip. It's flippity flop.
I still like flip better. Let's take a vote.
Okay.
Who likes flippity flip better, and who likes flippity flop better?
I think most people are gonna agree with me. If they don't agree with me, then they're racist.
That's valid. Okay, so you better agree with her or you're racist.
Yeah, pretty much.
But also, if you're not racist, then you're prejudiced against white people.
All right. Bye. So there you go. Thank you for tuning in to the Girl Pray On It podcast. We hope today's conversation gave you something to reflect on. Be sure to follow us on both Instagram and TikTok at Girl Pray On It Pod. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, Girl Pray On It Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you listen, so you'll always be up to date with our newest episodes. Stay connected, stay encouraged, and as always, girl, pray on it.